Welcome back to Beyond the Gate, our Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Meg.
And today we're talking about episode 22, Backs in the Distance.
So, summary for the episode. Scar's mission to destroy those who slaughtered his people is fueled by justifiable rage. Upon learning the role Scar played in her parents' deaths, Winry claims those murderous feelings as her own.
Yeah, so this covers manga chapters 46, The Distant Image of Their Backs, 47, A Girl in the Grips of Battles Past and Present, and we think it might cover another chapter because there's like a little flashback of Scar's backstory in here, but it wasn't in the 2 volumes I had rented, and Meg didn't see it either, so we'll get back to you on that, hopefully.
Yes, I'm sure it's in there somewhere. Yeah, and I guess before we jump into the episode, we got a listener comment about it must be episode 20, when we were discussing body, spirit, and soul, and how that didn't really make a lot of sense. And one of our listeners, Cody, he said that he thinks of it as more as mind, body, and soul, which I totally agree with. That was like the word I was searching for, but couldn't think of in the moment. And it's kind of interesting too that in the anime they say body, soul, and spirit, and then also in at least the translation that I read, they also say it that way in the manga. So
But there's a song that Amelie does. Was it one of the songs from the original Full Metal? There's a lyric where she says, "You give it everything, your body, mind, and soul." So her translation, she does body, mind, soul.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes a lot more sense. And usually, like, when I think of, like, the different parts of a human, like, that's what mind, body, soul. I don't know.
Or, like, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, like, those different aspects. I've heard those before, too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it must just be, like, a translation thing. Because I do always think of, like, the soul and the spirit as kind of being, like, meaning the same thing. They're interchangeable.
And this is a different culture, so maybe their culture, like, our ideas have different words to them than theirs do. But it's the same concept.
Yeah. But thank you for the comment. Back to the episode. Let's jump right into it. It's a good one. So we start off where the last episode ended, where King Bradley has cut off Lan Fan's mask, and she falls off the thing they were standing on, and looks very injured. But she did get was able to cut Bradley with her blade, which they call kunai.
If you watch Naruto, you know what that is.
Yeah, I've not seen it, so I don't know what that is. But anyway, and then Bradley gives Gluttony permission to eat Lan Fan, but Ling is super awesome. He jumps and like cuts off Gluttony's, like, honestly, like the top half of his head and also his hands.
And then it zooms into Ling's eyes. Oh my word, this dude is intense. Like, he was the jokester up until this moment. Once his friend was threatened, all jokes are off the table.
Yep, this moment was the moment that I was like, oh, this is...
I think I like this character.
Yeah, like, what? He's not just a lazy dude who eats a bunch of food and, like...
Not just the goofball.
And is places that nobody wants him to be. And he jumps to save Lan Fan, and it's awesome. He, like, picks her up, and then, like, he's also, like, fighting Bradley at the same time. He's very agile, and he's, like, staying in King Bradley's blind spot, and it's obvious that he has seen some combat, but then it's kind of 2 against 1, and Gluttony, like, hits Ling, and he, like, goes flying through a window, and Bradley follows, and he tries to interrogate Ling, like, who are you? Why are you here? Like, what are you doing? And he tells Ling to get rid of his excess baggage, meaning Lan Fan, so that he can escape, but Ling won't, and he's very angry about it. But then Lan Fan, yeah, I think she's the one that throws the flash bomb.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Ling tries to leave, which I was impressed. I was impressed with this because he was like, I can feel the draft through the door, so it must be this way. But right as he's about to escape, Bradley throws his sword and
Yeah.
he's still trapped.
So something else interesting. I think this was in the manga, but Ling actually counted out paces like to the door. He's like there are how many paces to the door? Because he felt the draft in the anime, but I'd have to look at the manga again, but I'm pretty sure in the manga, right before the flash bomb went off, he like glanced at the exit, like he felt the draft, glanced at the exit, and then closed his eyes when the flash went and thought to himself, it's like so and so paces to the door, I can make it.
Very impressive, but he doesn't make it. And then we head right into a flashback that Winry is having of her parents leaving, and it's very cute, but also sad. And then we see that she's visiting Hugh's grave with Gracia and Alicia, and she's remembering that with both her parents and Hugh's, the last thing she saw was their backs, like, going away from her. So it's, I don't know, very, very sad, and also that's important for later. I don't know, it's just a very sweet scene because Gracia asks Winry to visit, and then Alicia like holds her hand, and it makes you sad. And then Winry's walking through the streets, and she's hearing all the people around her talking about how the state alchemist Edward Elric is fighting Scar, and then she remembers her. Just like her parents and Hughes walking away from her, she also remembers Ed walking away from her. And she is very worried for him. And she goes to look for them. And then we go back to the fight. Yes, back to the action. Scar and Ed fighting, and it's very intense. Ed is definitely like fighting for his life.
He's looking tired.
But yeah.
I really like this part. They cut it out for time reasons, I suppose, but in the manga, while they're fighting, Scar is indiscriminately just destroying everything, and he hits like the outside of a house because they're on the street level, and it's this lady's house, and there's rubble just cascading towards her, and Ed, without hesitation, jumps in front of her, bends over backwards, and uses his alchemy to catch everything, and he just like yells over his shoulder, I'm so sorry about that, I'll clean it up later. He goes back to fighting Scar.
Yeah, I like that scene too. The one thing that like makes me mad is like when these villains that have like
a moral compass.
Who have like a moral compass, like what they're doing is good, or they view it as good, but then like when they fight the person that they're, angry at or whatever, they don't care about anybody else around
blinded
them. Like,
by their rage.
Yeah, they just like
for sure
will hurt anyone. And it's
and Ed's like, don't involve innocent bystanders, and he and Al are still fighting, and obviously there's other military personnel on the scene, and they're getting hurt too. Like none of them die, but they're getting hit with shrapnel and being driven back. And Scar doesn't have a vendetta with them, just the state alchemists.
Yeah, just annoying to me.
Get it together, Scar.
Yeah, don't pretend to have a moral compass and then like
destroy things.
Not actually care about anybody. It's like it's not a good look. Anyway, the fight continues. Ed, I was very impressed with this. Ed like climbs this pipe. It's very impressive. It takes a lot of strength to do that. But then he falls because Scar like destroys it. And it's kind of funny because Al like catches him with like this alchemy hand that he made. And Ed's like, good job, brother.
I loved it. Nice save. It's nice seeing Al save Ed. Like they will mutually rescue each other. And Ed may be our quote unquote main protagonist, but that doesn't mean Al is helpless or that he's just standing by doing nothing.
Yeah. They make a very good team.
Yeah.
But Al realizes that Ed is tired and the homunculi are nowhere in sight, so they need to buy times to keep Ed alive. And so Al tries to distract Scar by asking him questions. And the first one he asks is, how can you use your alchemy? How can you use alchemy if your god is the creator and the destroyer? And he accuses Scar of using the name of his god to justify murder. And Scar shoots back with, look at all the things that alchemy has done. He reminds the boys of Nina and what happened, or they're remembering Nina, and what happened to her, and then also what happened to Al. He lost his body because of alchemy. Ed and Al are like, well, you stole Nina's life. You killed her. How is that right? But then Scar brings up an interesting point that her life would have been miserable. They would have put her in a lab. She never would have had a normal life again. And the Elrics realized that he's right, and they stood by and did nothing about it because, well, I don't know. They're 14 and 15.
They get a buy, okay?
Yeah,
they get an
I
excuse.
don't blame them for that. But of course,
when they look back on it,
being who they are, of course, they look back and like, we
well,
did nothing,
I mean,
and you know.
I've had moments like that where something bad has happened, and then I look back and think there was something I could have done to prevent it. Maybe I didn't think of it at the time, or maybe I thought I couldn't do it at the time, but I should have at least tried. So,
yeah, that's
them
true.
saying that makes it totally human, totally understandable.
Yeah, but just a sad moment, like always bringing Nina into the conversation.
Yeah, come on. Stop bringing up that trauma.
But while they're having this argument with Scar, Winry arrives, and at first they don't see her, and Ed begins talking about the rock bells, and as he starts to talk about them, Al sees Winry and's like, brother, stop, wait, but
Too late.
He accuses Scar of killing her parents, and then he turns around and sees that Winry heard the whole thing. And of course, Winry is very upset. And it's, I don't know, just this line, like, give them back to me, you monster, like that broke my heart a little bit. Yeah, so sad.
Props to the voice actress. Caitlin Glass did a phenomenal job. For me, I think the part that got me was, she said, give me back my mom and dad. I want my mom and dad. And her voice broke, and she's just like this scared kid.
Yeah. But while Winry is getting more and more upset, Ed sees that one of the MP's guns are on the ground near her, and she sees it too, and he starts warning her, don't do it. But she grabs a gun and points it at Scar. And as this is happening, Scar is remembering his mentor's words, which we heard, I don't remember whatever episode it was. But vengeance breeds more vengeance. And Scar seems to just kind of accept his fate. He tells Winry that she has the right to kill him. And then we go into a backstory.
Sorry, I hate when they break up intense moments with backstory sometimes.
I feel like that's kind of a...
That is the whole of My Hero Academia, just so you know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's very much definitely an anime trope, but
yeah, I mean, it's very important.
Thing, but it's I don't know.
So important.
It is. But... and like I want the backstory, but like, do you have to do it like in the middle of this super intense scene where I just want to see
to make you wait, to make you want it more.
Yeah. But anyway, backstory. We are in Ishval, and Scar is there, and we find out he has a brother. The Mestrians are coming are attacking
Drive them out.
Yeah. And Scar goes to his brother and warns him to leave, and his brother is busy studying, and we see that he has these tattoos on both of his arms.
Super jacked up.
We can talk about that later. You're getting ahead of yourself. And he says his right arm deconstructs and his left arm reconstructs, and basically he can do alchemy with the tattoos that he has. And the other Ishvalans, they want to use his brother's alchemy to save their civilization. And Scar does not like alchemy. He said it creates evil and it's trading God for science. And it's basically like what he said to Ed and Al, that they're doing the same thing. And then we see very sad scene of the Ishvalans like being slaughtered by the Mestrians, and they like focus in on their blue eyes, and a lot of them have blonde hair, which is not unlike a real part of world history.
Or the Third Reich.
Yeah, and that, yes, they are. Like we see them literally like shooting people in the ditches, like women and children, and
This
basically
show gets
everyone.
very graphic for yeah.
This part's very hard to watch. But then we see Scar. He's like he just like literally like punching people. Like
You
everybody
don't
has
need no alchemy.
yeah.
They have guns and he just disarms 6 of them with
yeah.
his bare hands.
It's very impressive. And then while he's in the middle of doing this, he sees like a big explosion and it's like near where his family is. And he goes to them and everyone's okay for now. Okay, if you watch the episode, you know what's gonna happen. And his brother comes and gives him his research notes, and Scar's like, why are you doing this? And he tells Scar that he's more likely to survive because he's a fighter. And while they're arguing, Kimberly arrives, which it's been a hot minute since we've seen him, but he was that weird prisoner. And he is a state alchemist, and he destroys, just obliterates them. I don't know exactly what he does, but he breaks up the ground
reaction of explosions,
Yep. But right as Kimberly unleashes his attack, Scar's brother jumps in front of him to protect his brother. And then after the attack, we see that his brother has survived. And everyone else has died. It's super sad that his parents and everyone, but then he finds Scar, and Scar now he actually has his Scar, and he's missing an arm, and he's not gonna make it. But then we see his brother makes the ultimate sacrifice and uses his alchemy to trade his right arm.
Where have we seen that before?
I don't know.
And his big brother sacrificed his right arm.
Yep, to save him. So, anyway, his brother's dead.
Wow, way to break that gently.
Sorry, like we don't actually see him die, but like.
Well, you can assume.
Yeah, we can assume he does.
Blood loss from amputating his own arm.
Yeah, what he should have done, traded his arm and then like cauterized the wound. Maybe he would have been okay. But anyway, and Scar wakes up in the hospital, not in the hospital, but
like a mobile surgical unit.
Yeah. And he's very disoriented. He doesn't know what's going on. He like remembers Kimberly and his brother jumping in front of him, and then like he's seeing like the blue eyes of the Mestrians, and then he like sees his arm, and it's his brother's, and he's like, oh, brother's alive, but then it's like, wait, no, that's my arm. And then he sees the doctors that are taking care of him, who are the Rockbells, and they have those blue eyes, and that he like hyper focuses on those, and he attacks them and kills them. So kind of see what happened to her parents. And then he leaves and he goes and he sees that Ishval has been like totally destroyed, and there's just like, I was impressed with this. Just like this scream of pain and also rage.
Yeah, good job. What was it? J. Michael Tatum who voiced him? Yep. Good job.
Yep. And that is the end of the flashback. And we go to Winry confronting Scar again. And she hasn't shot him yet, but Ed and Al are begging her not to do it. But Scar says it's justified, but once she does it, she'll be his enemy. And he also like hits them with like, it was your people who pulled the trigger first. Which I don't know, kind of think is a weak argument. That doesn't mean.
Well,
I don't know.
honestly, I see his point.
I totally see his. Okay, I do see his point, but it's like I don't know.
I respect his comment of saying that she is justified in killing him. Like he
Yeah.
realizes what he's done. At the
Yeah.
same time, he has every right to hate Emestrians for what they did to his people.
Yep.
But there's
Yeah.
also the fact that there were good Emestrians who tried to save his people too. Like the Rockbells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not every single Emestrian is evil. And literally his grudge is not even against, like, it's literally just state alchemists.
Yeah.
Which it's probably more because the state alchemists, he knows the state alchemist was responsible for his family's death.
Yeah, I think, you know what, him specifying his hatred towards them, it's safer for everybody in Investors.
Yeah, although it is, like, kind of interesting, because it wasn't, like...
There were MPs there.
Yeah, like, it was the whole Emestrian army.
But he had that thing against alchemy from the beginning, and...
Yeah, that's true.
Got a rocky history with it. And also, those MPs, he could also say, like, they were soldiers just following orders, maybe... they were committing this horrible thing, but they were kind of being forced into it. And with alchemists, they're given that great power, and it's like, well, they can choose how to use their power. I don't know. I don't know,
because they were still, they were still forced into it, and he literally calls them, like, the dogs of the military. So, like, I don't know. Anyway, there's a standoff, and Ed... he does some alchemy to, I think he's like trying to distract Scar, and it's super awesome. He like backflips over Scar, and then like puts himself between Winry and Scar, and it's like, I loved this moment. And then Scar remembers that his brother's actions, like literally like doing the same thing for him, and he freezes, and then he runs away. And Al chases after him, and then we're left with Ed and Winry, and Winry is very upset, that she couldn't do it. She's like, he killed my parents, and he was threatening you guys, and I couldn't do it. This moment, so sweet. Ed takes a gun from her, but he peels like one finger away at a time, and he's very gentle with her and like comforting her.
Yeah. And as he's touching her and as he's helping her, the camera just focuses extra attention to his right hand, which she made for him, and he's just so gentle when like, taking the gun away or like comforting her, touching her. He handles her like he's handling something made of glass.
Mm-hmm. It's so sweet, and Megan was saying this the other day, and I agree. This is like the moment where I was like, I ship them for sure.
I wasn't sure before, but I am now.
Yeah, it was very sweet. And then the episode ends.
All right, so that was a great episode. And the manga kind of followed it, pretty faithfully. I should say that other way around. The anime wasn't really skipping around as much as it has been in the last couple of episodes. I guess a couple more manga things I just wanted to mention. Though the fully animated show is great for showing all of the action with these scenes, I do love a lot of the panels in the manga, but especially the one depicting when Ed vaults over Scar's head and jumps in front of Winry to protect her. It's very, very sweet. And also the scene with her like taking the gun away and the emotion on his face, it's really cool.
Yeah. I loved it both in the anime and the manga. Both.
It's special. It's very special both ways, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, voice actor notes. We've got a couple of them. There's our minor characters not really recurring, but very important. The first would be Scar's brother, who is played by Robert McCollum, who is Reiner. Is that his name? Reiner Braun?
Okay.
Rainer?
I don't know. I have an issue with Attack on Titan names. Like, I never know how they're actually pronounced. Like, when I watch it, I hear Rhina, but I think it's probably Reiner.
Okay, whatever it is. I'm just gonna say Reiner Braun from Attack on Titan, Julius in Black Clover, and Stain from My Hero Academia. That one surprised me. And then Sarah Rockabelle, which is Winry's mom, was played by Caitlin Glass, so Winry's voice actress, and we already covered her in a previous episode. So we'll move on to Yuri Rockabelle, which is Winry's dad, played by Joel McDonald, who is Yuga Aoyama from My Hero Academia, Abra from Black Clover, and Rada Toritska from Psyche K. I don't know how he got such a serious role when all these others are kind of crazy. But anyway, so we got name meanings. Sarah is from Hebrew origin, and it means princess. And Yuri is from Russian origin, and it means farmer. That does not go. That does not track. He is not a farmer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's a cool name.
I just added something to our list of things to talk about. We talked about this the other night, but I might have seen like a meme about this, but still worth like mentioning. Scar is very lucky that his brother's arm is just as jacked as his is, because it'd have been so hilarious for him to like
a noodle arm because his brother's a nerd.
Yeah. Also, why is he like his brother's a super huge nerd, obvious. Like all we okay, actually I don't know if he's a super huge nerd, but like all we see him doing is like studying and like reading books, and like that's like all he talks about. So like when is he pumping iron? And maybe he's doing like while he's reading, just like one arm flipping
interesting
pages.
Alchemy notes. Let me write that down.
Yeah, but I just thought that was funny. And I wonder if the mangaka will have written a little extra story about that, because that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, but speaking of that's why I was making so many jokes earlier in the podcast about him being ripped. But we had some theories for why all of these Ishvalans are absolutely shredded. And it could be that's just their way of life. They're hard workers and manual labor, because I come from a community where there's a lot of farmers. Farmers are very strong, just naturally, because of all the work they do in their day-to-day lives. So maybe in Ishval, everybody has, jobs where they help around and are just really strong. The other thing could be, I think they mentioned that Scar was like a monk of Ishval or something like that. And so maybe monks have like this religious stipulation where you have to get absolutely beefed. That's the only way you can serve God.
I think like the farmer theory is a good one, and the only thing is that like when Scar was recovering from his injury that one time, we literally see him pumping iron. So like that makes me think that's like he just does that.
Yeah. Or it could be a warrior society too.
Yeah, that too. Which then that would make sense with him like turning into a beefcake.
There's also that meme about Scar from 2003 versus Brotherhood Scar.
Yeah.
He looked like a soft little baby in 2003, and now he's a ripped man.
Yeah. And in the manga, he is a ripped man.
Yes, so that's how he was meant to be.
The 2003 version did him dirty.
I think it's important that his design is so muscular and harsh and strong, because he contrasts Ed so much. Ed, who's small and like he's very strong, but he has kind of like that wiry strength to him because he's young.
Okay, question: he'll pack on some muscle. As an artist, do you prefer to draw
Mm,
Characters who are jacked, or do
mm-mm.
you just like when they're scrawny?
My preferred my preferred dude that I draw is on the scrawny side.
All right. Because I think somewhere in the manga, one of the questions that the author gets asked
Yes.
is like, who do you like to draw? Like,
She
who's your
said
favorite to draw?
Armstrong.
Yeah, she
She
like,
uses bodybuilders for reference. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just I don't know. I like characters who are fast and like agile. So I
Mm,
err more towards the scrawnier, maybe still strong, but like more like track athlete physique, which makes sense because I was a track athlete, so that's what I was surrounded with. And
hmm
yeah. But yeah, I recently been watching Black Clover, and there's a character named Yuno. He's got kind of the physique that I normally draw. He's like pretty small frame, but tall, lanky.
Nice.
On to the next tracking thing. Homunculi deaths. So Gluttony died once when Ling absolutely destroyed him.
Hmm.
That was gross, but pretty epic.
Yep.
And also, there's an animation note, and I was very impressed when we were watching this because Meg went, "Oh, that was cool!" Like she noticed a difference in animation. That was good. Um, so it's the
That
shot
happens when
where
you're a friend with a friends with an animator.
who points out every little detail. Yes. But it's the shot when Ed is running away from Scar and starts climbing up the pole. So it switches real quick to a POV shot of him running, and they use some sort of CG for the space. So you see like the camera rushing forward, like where in Ed's perspective, and he climbs the pole. It's like this really cool three-dimensional space, and it's very quick, but you know, like blinking you'll miss it. But it added so much to that scene, like just the impact of how fast they're moving and how serious it is, and Ed is really tired from jumping around so much.
Hmm. That was mm, that was my favorite action scene in the
Yeah, yeah,
episode.
yeah.
All right.
So nothing for the scientific side, right?
Nah, we don't need to talk about science.
So
Mm.
we did have a philosophical thing though, which I feel like we haven't had one of those in a while. But it's a line that Al said when he accused Scar of using his god's name to justify murder. And there are some real life examples of that, like the Crusades, using the name of the Lord to commit horrible acts. And
Hmm.
just want to say a disclaimer that like God never, you know, tells humans justify their acts through God. It's not like God is actually saying to do those things. There's a whole argument that could be made, but we're just gonna bring up the whole side of human nature being to blame for most of these things. I don't want to speak against anybody's religion.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, I just thought this Al's point was interesting because it's something that, like you just said, it's something that actually has happened in our the real world history, and also it still happens today.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that's what I like about this show is that even though it's like definitely totally made up world, it has a lot of real life things that happen in real life. Like just in this episode, they had the whole Amestrian Ishvalan war, like is very reminiscent of um the Third Reich and what happened in the Holocaust. Like it's very interesting. And I love to hear the authors like why she chose to like bring up all this stuff and make so many parallels to real life
yeah.
events.
She
Um
has some great deep dives into like the mental aspects of history and
mhm,
the heart of issues and stuff. And doing it under
yeah.
the guise of a fantasy world is actually very brilliant.
Hmm. Yeah. One of the reasons why I really like this show is
Yes.
that it's a great story and it also there's a lot to think there's a lot of things to talk about. Can start a lot of good conversations about things.
Yeah.
All right. That is the end of our extra stuff. So, Megan, what was your favorite line of the episode?
Yeah, mine came from Ling. It was like right away in the episode when he said, "A ruler's duty is to his people. Without them, he is no king at all." And that is very true. And I really liked that he said that. I liked his
Yep.
conviction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your favorite line, Meg?
My line came from Ed when he's comforting Winry. And I think this is actually Megan's favorite line too, but she wanted to pick a different one. Um, so he says Winry's asking him why she couldn't do it, and Ed says, "It's your hands. They weren't meant to kill. They're meant to give life."
And he's saying that while he's holding her hand with his automail hand.
So
She
sweet.
gave him an arm and a leg, and she helped deliver a baby, and she saved so many people's lives.
Mm-hmm. This episode made me so happy.
Yeah, I saw your smile. I saw your smile.
All right. What was the moral of the episode?
It was hatred breeds more hatred. We've kind of already talked about this point before. There was a previous episode where we talked about the cycle of violence, but we needed to address it again because it was just driven home in this episode.
Mm-hmm. There is this cycle of violence, but then I think there's also a cycle of, I guess you could say, love, because Ed puts himself in front of Winry, and Winry doesn't shoot Scar. One moment of compassion breaks the cycle. Yeah. Anyway, who pushed the story forward in the episode?
We're probably gonna have to say Scar. We got his backstory, and his life has affected all of the other characters' lives. So yeah, he was a major player.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
That's it.
Yep, that's all. That's all we've got, folks. Oh, isn't that?
That's all, folks.
Yep.
Looney Tunes.
Yep. Yeah. Follow us on Instagram. DM us. Send us an email at fullmetalbeyondgay@gmail.com. And we haven't mentioned this in a while, but write us a review. If you write a review and it's not super mean, we will read it.
We only want your good reviews. Don't write.
Yeah, we only want to hear the good stuff. No, but you know what I'm saying.
If you have any suggestions, we will take it.
Yes, we definitely are open to suggestions. We will read them at the beginning of our episodes. We will be back next week with another episode.
All right. Bye.
Bye.